to the T, pay with a capital P. I wear my heart on my sleeve, ADOS on my jeans, all of my legends in me. If George Floyd had a second chance, he hearing this.
How's everybody doing today? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks. I wanted to have a discussion about some of the stuff that we're seeing right now with the NBA and with the NBA Finals. We're having this discussion in a larger context of wealth, where Black America, particularly working age Black Americans, ages 20 to 50, largely have no wealth. I mean, when you look at Black America, we've discussed this in the past 2 weeks. We have $6.33 trillion of wealth overall, and almost 41% of that is in the hands of Black boomers' pensions. We're looking at right below $3 trillion of our 6.33 in the hands of Black boomer pensions. In addition, when you look at real estate, that's pretty much Black boomers as well. You're looking at a world where black working age people that went to college are largely collapsed, and we're having this contextual discussion in the backdrop of a decadent veil of Black media, from Black celebrity, Black NBA, NFL, Black comedy, Black movie stars. You see this need for media to cover all of our social condition up with these Black celebrities in this faux myth of I guess equality in wealth. Because if you didn't have that, you might see what you see in Cuba or right now in terms of like Black America, particularly ADOS Black Americans, American descendants of slavery that built this country and largely now are wealthless, while everyone else largely is not. And one of the things that really has made it clear is that inside of the NBA, they have elevated a small number of Black people to the point where there's large amounts of craze in America, both amongst Black folks and white folks. Recently on my Twitter, I saw it where one white lady came in and she basically spoke to like Oprah and NBA stars and saying that there's Black millionaires too. In America, we're talking about almost 15 million white households that are above 1 million too, and she's talking about a few tens of people, if not a few hundred people, and largely they make their money playing basketball, sport. It's not business, it's not infrastructure, it's not even creation of military weapons. It's just them running around. Now, in addition, you had Black people come in, and I don't think that they mean bad, but they just don't understand. They say, well, aren't rich Black Americans skewing the data? Well, there aren't any. The numbers are so small that they don't really exist. What does exist is the large bulk of Black men and women that are unemployed. What does exist is a large number of Black folks that will not receive any inheritance. I don't think that everybody understands that. That makes it impossible to have Black family or Black community, because we live now in America, especially if you're talking about upper echelon goals of retirement, college educated children, in a world where you live on labor mixed with inheritance. And I would say larger and larger, it's looking like inheritance is the larger share of what you live on, whether it's a chunk of inheritance or gifts throughout life. And then labor is actually like kind of like the icing, or even let's just say a thinner top layer of cake. That's the way it's working now. In a world where white America has $115 trillion and only I think 20% of that is pension, a large number of new white millennial millionaires from large wealth transfers. But the reason why I wanted to talk to you today is I wanted to talk about this Milwaukee Bucks, because I think that no team in America, possibly in American sport, more represents the conundrum of the decadent veil than the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I'm not saying they're the only team, but they are crystal clear in the reflection of what they're trying to give off versus the condition of Black folks, not only in Milwaukee, but across Wisconsin. It may be one of the worst states for Black folks in America, definitely ranks up there. But the thing that's different is that when you go to a place like Mississippi, they don't have a basketball team. Wisconsin does through the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't know how they got one. I don't know how Black people are supporting it. They're talking about this Deer District and the revitalization of Milwaukee, but they're not telling you the condition of Black folks in Milwaukee. We're going to talk about that today. We had a couple tweets to frame this discussion that I said, understand how crazy this is given Milwaukee's current condition. I'm talking about the NBA Finals are the greatest commercial for Milwaukee. This is the president of the Milwaukee Bucks, Peter Feigin, says. I got a picture of him in this Biz Journal article. Understand how crazy this is. This is my statement, given Milwaukee's current condition for Black America. They are saying the Bucks are a global commercial, while nationally, Black America largely struggles economically. In Milwaukee, they almost entirely collapsed. I told you guys the video was coming, and I alluded to it with a statement. There are 56 black neighborhoods in Wisconsin, according to the racial dot map, which is a map that takes people by race and counts them by dot and shows you where they live. According to the racial dot map, 31 are either jails or prisons. The rest are nearly all Section 8 housing. And people are talking about fear the deer, hashtag fear the deer, talking about Milwaukee Bucks, and I tagged King James, the Bucks in the NBA. Tag King James, the Bucks in the NBA. I want to go back to the Milwaukee Bucks president and his statement and his article. As the cameras panned in and out of commercial breaks during Game 3 of the NBA Finals on June 11, ESPN was still advertising something, not just a product. Instead, the cameras focused on a neighborhood filled with Milwaukee Bucks fans gathered for a watch party reminiscent of a European soccer crowd. I think in our wildest dreams, we couldn't imagine that we would have more people outside than we would have inside. Peter Feigin, president of the Milwaukee Bucks, said, "This is our global commercial," Feigin said. "I mean, this is where we have billions of impressions. This is what you live for in pro sports, to be in the finals and have these 2 weeks where the focus of the world is on you." But herein lies the issue. While he's calling the Milwaukee Bucks in this fear the deer thing that is, to me, a mark of post-pandemic possible craze, because you have those people out there with no mask, crowded together to watch a game on a TV, celebrating a city that has collapsed, particularly black folks, and not done too well for poor folks at large. He gonna call that the global commercial, while the city struggles and particularly black folks are collapsed. But I'm not guessing. I want to give you guys context, because in many ways, Milwaukee, Wisconsin is, I believe, a harbinger and a reflection of the problems that are coming for black folks nationally. There's an article came out last year. Black Milwaukeeans are generally worse off today than 50 years ago. UWM study finds. Black people in Milwaukee are generally worse off today than 40 or 50 years ago when compared to black people across the country, according to a recent study. Black people in Milwaukee are generally worse off today than 40 or 50 years ago in indicators like poverty, mass incarceration, economic mobility, and segregation. That's according to the latest study from the UW Milwaukee Center for Economic Development. Mark Levine, professor emeritus of history and founding director of the Center for Economic Development, authored the study. It looks at racial inequality among the nation's 50 largest metropolitan areas. The black poverty rate in Milwaukee is the highest in the country at 33.4%, Levine says. It was at its highest in 1990 at 41%. When it comes to poverty in Milwaukee, he says there are layers. The study looks at extreme poverty, which is the percentage of black population with an income of less than 50% of the poverty rate. So we're talking about people making $13,000, $15,000 a year. Milwaukee is, of course, among the worst in the country at that as well. 14% of the black population in Milwaukee has income that's 50% or less than the poverty line, Levine says. The study also looked at concentrated poverty, which he says relates to segregation. If you have a very segregated city and you have African Americans concentrated in particular neighborhoods, and many of those African Americans are poor because we have such a high black poverty rate, then in fact, you're going to have what's called concentrated poverty, geographically focused poverty in these census tracts or slightly larger neighborhood areas. Levine says that 26% of the black population in the entire metro Milwaukee area, whether or not they're poor, live in concentrated poverty. He said that's a stunning statistic. I have statistics for another study that I'm going to do showing that a shockingly high percentage of black households in Milwaukee with income over $100,000 a year that are living in concentrated poverty neighborhoods. Fundamentally, because of a lack of wealth transfers, you see black folks, even when they do get some level of income, stuck in low poverty neighborhoods because they're paying student debt, because they're helping family members, because they were never positioned to actually move up and out. There was no reparative justice movement. But what Peter Feigin wants to do is have a global commercial that auditions, that presents a black Milwaukee that never happened in Milwaukee and largely never happened nationally. But party on, party on. We got the Deer District. We got the Phoenix Suns versus Milwaukee Bucks. We gonna forget the fact that white folks have $114.97 trillion of wealth, and Black America has 6.33. And 41% of that, nearly 3 trillion of the 6.33, is black pensioners, black older boomers pensions. We're going to forget the fact that liquid wealth-wise, white America has, of that 115 trillion, almost 40 to 50 trillion dollars liquid to go buy jerseys, to go buy tickets to the games, while all of Black America might have 800 billion with a B, largely again in the hands of black boomers in their accounts. I need everybody to start getting it before the consequence. Don't come to me with symptoms of, oh, childcare is too expensive. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to pay to eat. You have to look at the causation, because it is in the causation that you might call dire, that you might call negative, that the solution lies. Because if you don't close the wealth gap, I don't know how you're going to afford that family that you're looking at. This is the reality of the moment. And I think for us, we want to party. We want to, there's a social celebration going on. A celebratory moment that works really well for white America, but awful for blacks. A moment to let our hair down after the pandemic and go to the Deer District and jump up and down with no mask on. But while that's happening, we look a few years back and we see a study done out of Milwaukee where they say a study shows Milwaukee unemployment for black men is at a record high. The unemployment rate for black men in Milwaukee has reached a record high of 53%, according to a report released by the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. The unemployment rate represents a 13.4% increase for black men in Milwaukee County from 2008, according to the report. The study, performed by a professor of urban studies and history at the UW Milwaukee, compared the rate of jobless black males to white and Hispanic males living in Milwaukee in 2009. While unemployment in the state of Wisconsin may be decreasing, black males in Milwaukee without jobs are increasing. Understand, this man said the unemployment rate for black men aged 25 to 52 was 44% in 2009, while for white men the rate was 14.4%, and for Hispanics 25%. Nearly 50% of black men no jobs, jobless. And that's not because they didn't look for work, that's because there wasn't none. And that's not because of a lack of effort, that's because of a lack of reparative justice to actually make effort count. See, we got this whole decadent veil. We got this cover going on. We got this whole situation where America has decided it's going to move past the realities of our social condition and move into a new world. A new world where black America didn't happen. Adolf's black America. We're going to get some new black folk. We're going to get some different black folk, act like black America didn't happen, act like slavery was a history lesson, and not deal with the condition, but leave it in Adolf's black folks' families. The Decadent Veil, Black America's Wealth Illusion. Again, go read that article. I wrote it back in 2014, and what I was telling you is that this is not about basketball. This is about an illusion of wealth. It is about a covering of the social condition of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and cities like that all across this country. Because if you can cover that up, you can diffuse the political energy that leads to everything from voting patterns changes to actually hitting the streets with demands for massive transformation. You can diffuse a million Jameses if you can give us one LeBron James. Let me say that again. You can diffuse a million James effort if you can give us one LeBron James. We've read this before. This is a section from the Decadent Veil. The Decadent Veil looks at black America through a lens of group theory and seeks to explain an illusion that's taken form over a 30-year span of financial deregulation and newfound access to unsecured credit. This veil is trimmed with million-dollar sports contracts, Rock Nation tour deals, and designer labels made for heads of state. As black celebrity invited us into their homes through shows like MTV Cribs, we forgot the condition of overall African-American financial affairs. Despite a large section of black America drowning in poverty and debt, the stories of a few are told as if they represent those of millions, not thousands. It is this new veil of economics that has allowed for a broad swath of America to become not just desensitized to black poverty, but also hypnotized by black celebrity. How could we not? Our channels from ESPN to VH1 are filled with presentations of black Americans being paid a king's ransom to entertain. as black celebrity has been shown to millions of people millions of times, the story of real lives has been lost, and with it, the engine that thrusts forward the demand for social justice by the masses. The heartbeat of social action is to recognize your mistreatment and demand better. With each presentation of LeBron James' $30 million a year contract or Oprah's status as a sole African American billionaire, a veil of false calm is created within the overall American economic psyche about the immense black wealth disparity. Young black men from ghettos across America that used to dream to make great changes in racial inequity now just dream to be a millionaire and be like Mike and dunk a ball, or be like Mike and dance on the stage. The decadent veil not only warps the black community's vision outward to a larger economic world, but it also distorts outside communities' view of black America's actual financial reality. There is no clearer example of trying to create a decadent veil than Peter Feigin using the Milwaukee Bucks as a global commercial. What do you think somebody in South Africa? What do you think somebody in Russia? What do you think somebody in China thinks about black folks in Milwaukee if Milwaukee Bucks are the commercial for that city? It is a covering and a veiling of the entire condition that leads to nearly 50% of black men being unemployed. That leads to black folks basically being in the same place that they were in during Jim Crow in that city. It leads to a reality where we don't deal with this. See, I'm going to come back to the racial dot map. The racial dot map uses dots to show people by where they live, by dot. Essentially, the blue dots I believe, are white folks. Green dots are black folks. I believe the red and yellow are Latinos and Asians. This young 17-year-old, Lou Blank, was covered by City Lab because he looked close at the racial dot map. He zoomed it in, because you can't. And he did something that no other economist, no other sociologist did. They so busy talking about hair and intersectionality and all of this that they didn't do what this 17-year-old did, which is show us what wealth does, which is show us the material condition of black folks in the city of Milwaukee. Half of Wisconsin's black neighborhoods are jails. This is from a few years ago. 17-year-old Lou Blank was fiddling around with the Weldon Cooper Center's racial dot map when he discovered something disturbing about Wisconsin. We're not just talking about Milwaukee now. We're talking about the whole state of Wisconsin, where he lives. More than half the African American neighborhoods in the state were jails. Not only that, but the rest of the black neighborhoods across the state are either apartment complexes, Section 8 housing, or homeless shelters. The lone exception being a working middle class section of Milwaukee. Sharing this info on the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition blog, Blank explains that he used the racial dot map to identify where predominantly black neighborhoods defined as a certain area where a majority of residents of African Americans are located throughout the state. There are 56 of them, 31 of which are either jails or prisons. There are 15 cities where the only black neighborhood is a jail. The city of Winnebago claims it has an African American population of more than 19%, but most of it, if not all of it, is located at their 4 correctional facilities. It is perhaps no wonder that Wisconsin perennially comes up as the worst place for African Americans to live in the country. And we have maps of Madison. The circles that Lou Blank used show where there's predominantly black neighborhoods, and they're basically, jails. In Madison, you look at it, in Madison, the Circle J area is the location of the city's largest jail. Every other circle is Section 8 housing, save for 2 apartment complexes. And he did a couple other places as well there in Milwaukee. But this is Madison. Let's talk about Milwaukee. The large circle area of Milwaukee marked with an A is the lone black neighborhood in the state of Wisconsin that is not a prison or mostly low-income housing. That said, there are 2 areas within that large circle and 1 area adjacent to it that are correctional facilities. Another predominantly black area way at the southern tip of the city is also a jail. I'm talking about E. So we got A as the circle, and then we got C and D, and then we got E. So, for me, I come back to the discussion as a whole. We have this NBA Finals on TV. We use it as a social connector between families. We use it as a social connector between races. But inside of that social connection is a hiding place for the material condition of black folks, and a great hiding place for all that wealth that white folks have. See, the NBA is fine with it. They'll give us an NBA Cares and change one little playground with some more basketball courts and show 1,000 pictures of that and tell us everything's all right. See, the white folks in the community are fine with it because they have all the money. They're going to go buy their jerseys. But the black folks don't even understand what's going on, the con of it all, the hustle. You come back to Peter Feigin. NBA Finals are the greatest commercial for Milwaukee. The problem, though, Peter, is they are a commercial that leaves out Milwaukee to tell the story of Milwaukee. They are the quintessential decadent veil. They are ultimately the problem that leads to a lack of black politics because we believe we don't need black politics. This is Tone Talks. I wanted to come to you, have a brief discussion about Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA, and what's going on there, because I think everybody's missing it because everybody wants to try to miss it rather than deal with the material condition of black folks and wealth in America. Thank you. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate, share this video. Just trying to get the discussion going. Give me your thoughts below.
Feels like a second chance every time I turn on the news. A black American man killed, they tied in the noose. Feels like a second chance, a man just could have been me. Feels like a second chance, in 24 hours I breathe. This shit is not adding up. Body count is just adding up. I'm not aware enough. I'm not care enough. I believe it seems to be the latter. Seems to be a 400-year struggle building in this country since emancipation. Time for reparations. I've been on call with my people. Time to go get up, collecting the government's dues. Anything else a distraction. I don't got no time for no bull talking. We moving. I've been on that to the T. Pay with a capital P. I wear my heart on my sleeve. ADOS in my jeans. All of my legends in me. If George Floyd, he be hearing this. If Breonna Taylor had a second chance, she be hearing this. If Ahmaud Arbery had a second chance, he would this. A white supremacist system that was built to crush your necks. Who is next? You can't even trust your common sense. This is something you should comprehend. Reparations, that's the only chance. I'm sick and tired of the symbolisms. Did 44 even try to fix it? There was Jim Crow, there was Tulsa. We were redlined, we've been locked out and built the richest country. That's right. Feels like a second chance every time I turn on the news. A black American man killed, they tied in the noose. Feels like a second chance, a man just could have been me. Feels like a second chance, in 24 hours I breathe. I've been on call with my people. It's time to go get up, collecting the government's dues. Anything else a distraction. I don't got no time for no bull. You talking, we moving. I've been on that to the T. Pay with a capital P. I wear my heart on my sleeve. ADOS in my jeans. All of my legends in me. Feels like a second chance. I don't got another chance. Every time I call my parents, feels like the last glance. I've been running out of time, walking on a thin line. Trigger fingers with the knife, pointing right in my mind. If they're gonna try to kill us anyways, might as well fight for something. And I'm damn sure not gonna let it happen, and I wind up dead for nothing. I believe that it's our biggest battle. Seems to be a 400-year struggle building in this country since emancipation. Time for reparations. I've been on call with my people. Time to go get up, collect on the government's dues. Anything else a distraction. I don't got no time for no bull talking. We moving. I've been on that to the T. Pay with a capital P. I wear my heart on my sleeve. ADOS in my jeans. All of my legends in me. Yeah. ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery.